and welcome to People and Power. I'm Summer El-Shahat. On this programme, is there something truly rotten in Denmark? And a British diplomat who turned his back on power.
I dealt with the Western Sahara for 4.5 years on the UN Security Council, and I didn't come here until after I'd finished dealing with it.
When it comes to trouble, Denmark has recently punched way above its weight. Violence, protests, arrests and even Islamophobia are becoming part and parcel of the social landscape of this once very tolerant country. Not so long ago, Denmark prided itself on having Europe's most open immigration policies. But that's not the case anymore. In fact, it's tightening its immigration laws by the day. This, some argue, is at odds with the country's status of being the world's biggest contributor of foreign aid. And since the furore over the cartoons of Prophet Muhammad, many are saying that the country is going through an identity crisis. So, can Denmark still claim that it's liberal, or has xenophobia made this a thing of the past? Sinead O'Shea went to find out.
Denmark, home of cradle-to-grave welfare, famed for its progressive, open society, constantly named as one of the happiest and most peaceful nations in the world. Come March 2007, things became a little different when the Danish police moved to evict members of a youth house which had been sold by the Copenhagen authorities to a Christian group. Roskilde, North Europe's largest festival. This year, the organisers asked members of the youth house to create a temporary version of their youth house, or ungdomshuset, as it is known in Danish.
I think I was about 17 when I first came in the house, and that's a little more than 10 years ago now. And I felt very excited about the place because I heard a lot about it before. I was a little bit scared and very fascinated. And I was extremely shy back then. But I really wanted to be part of this anyway, so I kept coming to meetings and gigs and all this. It was a political place, a left-wing place, but it wasn't only talking about what to do and talking about how to make a better world. It was actually trying to do those things in real life. There were a lot of people in the house who didn't really belong anywhere else, who didn't feel they belonged anywhere else.
The house, which had a century-long association with left-wing movements, was sold to a Christian sect in 2001. During the ensuing 6 years of legal wrangling, the authorities offered the youth housers an alternative residence. Controversially, they refused.
Do you really need to have rich uncles to find a space? We wanted to make sure that we weren't making a precedent saying you need a lot of resources to get resources.
And so the scene was set. On March 1st, the police arrived to evict the youth house members. What followed were some of the worst scenes of violence in Denmark since World War II.
We'd known for a long time that it would happen, or of course we'd hoped it wouldn't. Everyone was prepared and had thought about what they wanted to do when it happened. Some people went into the streets right away to protest, do whatever needed to be done to get the police away from the house. The whole nation was in a state of emergency, or at least, of course, I was in Nørrebro, so that's how it felt for me. But there was nothing else in the news for those 3 or 4 days. It was really, really crazy. It was like being at war.
Over 1,000 arrests were made, and the Danish borders were closed to stop overseas support for the protest from coming in. It took 4 days to quell the rioting. Shortly after, demolition began.
It's nothing that I can ever forgive. It's nothing I can ever forget, and it's something that's going to be really behind all the energy that I'm going to put in making this place better, hurting the politicians as much as I can.
It all took place in Nørrebro, a district with a high immigrant population, which also hosted the cartoon protests the year before.
Muslims have been torching half of this part of town, and it wouldn't have stopped for 10 years.
I think by far the biggest problem is the Islamic fundamentalism. In Denmark, there's been a tendency towards accepting everything when it is labeled religion.
The presence of the People's Party in the ruling coalition is another controversial feature of Danish life.
It is very important that we minimize the influx of immigrants from Muslim countries and also try to see if some of these Muslim people who would come to Denmark would be interested in returning to their own countries.
There are, of course, extreme points of view in every society, but in Denmark it seems these points of view have adopted centre stage. The People's Party, the Youth House riots, the cartoon protests. What does it all mean? How can so many dramatic incidents take place in one small country?
I became Muslim 25 years ago. Islam was not a problem as it is today. Islam is being problematized today. And when you become Muslim today, it's as if you're becoming an alien. It wasn't like that 25 years ago. It was exotic. It was like 1,001 Nights, incense, and it's like, interesting, exciting, you know. But it's not like that any longer. Now it's, Muslim? What's wrong? How did it ever go so wrong with you?
Last spring, winter and spring, was actually a manifestation of something that we in the Danish People's Party have pointed towards for a decade, that there is a cultural gap between the Islamic world and the Western world. That it's impossible to be a Muslim and not risk being a fundamentalist at some point. You don't see anyone except Muslims blowing up airports or blowing up commuter trains or whatever.
Well, they seem to have a popular backing. A lot of people like to play on the fear of others, and they are playing on the fear of people, the fear of the unknown.
If you call the Danish Folk Party racist, they'll drag you in court, because it's really not part of how Danish people see themselves. They can say things that are absolutely racist if you look at what is said about people of other color, of other culture, whatever. But if you call them a racist to their face, they won't like it.
And so Danish politics has become more and more polarised. Last summer, however, one man made a bid for the middle ground by leaving a left-leaning political party to form his own.
If you believe in democracy, if you are loyal to democracy, it doesn't matter if you are Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, or Christian. I'm not saying that we have to open our border for everyone in the world. I'm saying that it's okay that we have a firm immigration policy, but we should at the same time be human. Now it's almost impossible to come to Denmark. So you can at the same time be firm and fair. In my opinion, the religion and belief and faith should be a private matter.
Not everyone has been convinced.
You can only explain Naser Khader by looking at Naser Khader as a person. And as a person, Naser Khader is exceptionally vain. He's in love with himself, and he thinks of himself as a savior, as you might call him kind of a Jesus who will save all the Danish people from this bad Danish People's Party, and at the same time saving Muslims from fundamentalism.
He has deliberately been positioning himself away from the Muslim community. Deliberately. That has been his agenda.
Naser Khader is a sellout. That he is an Oreo, so to speak, a white person inside and a black person on the outside.
He does not represent the Muslim community.
In the recent Danish elections, Khader won a smaller than expected vote, and the People's Party gained a seat to remain the third largest political party. And so these results, alongside the future of Christiana, the Youth House and Denmark's immigrants, will be fiercely debated over the coming months. These are serious, potentially violent tensions. Do they all a rotten society make?
I wouldn't say rotten, but there's always something to change, because a society is not a product. A society is a process.
I think the normal whatever is normal becomes really dangerous if it represses things that aren't normal. I think there should be room for everything.
We'll probably have more terrorist attacks.
Foreign journalists and media people, they come to Denmark with one certain agenda. Denmark is a rotten country. It's a country with Islamophobia and so on, but it's not a true picture of Denmark.
I can freely speak. I can travel. I can work. There's so many things that I can do here which I could not necessarily do everywhere else in the world. I think there's a lot of very good things about Danish society. I thank my Lord every day that I'm here.
Perhaps what's most striking about Denmark is that events which are taking place all over the world are happening and being discussed on such a dramatic level in one small country. It's another question entirely if that makes a place rotten.
After the break, the diplomat for hire.